So namaste and welcome to Satsang this evening. So in this Satsang this evening, I wanted to discuss something that's come up several times this week during sessions I've been doing, and it's the difference really between how do we know the difference between a deep and profound realization that's going to last, that's going to be stable, a deep and profound knowing that we are that one being, that one being is all that there ultimately is, and some sort of temporary experience of the self, of the one, because the difference is huge. If we are clear, ultimately very, very clear on what we actually are, then the knowingness that's going to arise from that is not a thought, it's not a feeling, it's not an experience. It's going to be stable, it's going to be grounded, it's going to be lasting, and it's going to be effortless to live in that knowingness, that realization. So not only to see what we are, but to live as that is where we gather in Satsang, to come to a deep and profound knowing. So I just wanted to spend some time talking about that, and to go through together, we can all go through together on this Satsang, an investigation, a seeing into what we actually are. And this seeing is going to, the more that we see this, the more that we do this, the more it's going to begin to change our orientation, our whole, our reason for seeking is going to fall away, because there'll be a finding, a living as, a knowing, which is deeper than the searching, the questioning. And more importantly, perhaps, it's going to stand us in good stead then when our old sense of self arises. It's going to stand us in a better place, that we can begin to look at these things that come up from a place of already being peaceful, already knowing. And then we have a much easier time letting go of these old fragments of our separate sense of self. So if we're experiencing a different state, if we're doing something with our spiritual practice in order to change our state, and we achieve a nice feeling state, maybe even if we experience peace or love or joy or bliss, that's all well and good, that's fine to experience, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but it may not be at the same time actually changing us on a fundamental level. And by changing us, I mean shifting our identity over to knowing that I am that. And the reason for having this deep knowing that I am that is because then that won't leave you in a time of crisis, or when there is something happening in your outside world, or some turbulent emotion arising inside, or a storm of thoughts, or some physical bodily pain, or whatever seems to trigger us in our outer or inner world. With a deep and profound knowing that's stable and that has really penetrated all of your being, you won't seem to lose that when it matters most. You won't seem to be left high and dry. So how do we come to that stable and profound knowing? It's really from seeing, from actually looking and seeing. So I'm going to go through that this evening, and if you want to, you're more than welcome to follow along. And wherever you experience and see the truth of your being, it's going to leave you in a different place than where you started. It's not just a one-time seeing. We need to look and look again and look again until it's so obvious that what you are is not a separate being, that you never were a separate being. And knowingness that you are the one, an absolute deep seeing, is not going to come and go. It's going to be reliable, it's going to be stable, it's going to be dependable. And it's not necessarily going to feel like anything amazing at first. This is a huge key for me that it took me a long time to realize, that I can either be expecting some big seeing, some big aha moment, some fireworks and some wonderful thing that happens, maybe some bliss or joy or something like that. But much more likely, as I experience in lots of people that I see, it's just a seeing that happens. It doesn't feel amazing at first. It doesn't feel profound even at first. It can just feel quite normal and ordinary. But to see it again and again and again, it'll begin to feel anything but ordinary. So to progress in our knowing, we must be willing to let go, at least initially, of wanting some nice state to come with it, because it might not be that way at first. It might feel completely normal, your average everyday human experience. And if we're looking for it to be special, to come with some profound states of consciousness, then we might just skip right past the most important thing that we've ever noticed about ourselves. So if you want to follow along, you're more than welcome. We're just going to do a little bit of self-inquiry, and I'm going to take it through some deeper seeings, deeper and deeper seeings as we go. And then really we'll look into how to living as that as well. And if at any point you feel along the way at these seeings that you kind of can't prove, can't see, you sort of lose track of the seeing, it's totally okay. It's just showing us where we need to put further investigation. So we're just going to simply ask the question, one of my favorite questions, what really am I? And just to start our inquiry from there. So what really am I? I've had this assumption maybe that I am this separate being, that I'm just me, I am this mind and body. And of course there is a body when we ask what we are, what am I really? We're just going to look and see. So it's not a thinking about. We want a more direct seeing than thinking. We want a direct knowing, an experiential recognition of what we actually are. So when we ask, what really am I? Perhaps the first thing we'll notice is our body, that we are that too. There's a body present. And there may be thoughts going on for you right now as you're doing this. And there may be emotions, there may be some positive or negative states in the body, maybe some positive or negative emotions. And we can allow all that. It's not going to get in the way of our seeing at all. And then we're just going to look and see what else is there about me that is here. Have I fully explored everything else there is? And at first it may be challenging to recognize the deeper aspect of yourself. But even right now, in the space where your body is sitting, and all the furniture in the room that you're sitting in, and perhaps other beings that may be there, there is this spaciousness that's around the body. There is something in which all of this is appearing, and it's not actually a thing. My body's a thing, my thoughts are things, I can perceive them inwardly, and I can see outward objects with my eyes. But when I ask this question, what really am I? At some point, I'm going to become aware that all the objects I'm perceiving, including my own body, are arising inside some spaciousness, some not a thing yetness. And that is the deeper aspect of what you are. So part of the answer, what really am I? You will get the answer that you are a body as well, you are a mind as well, you are your emotions and all of that. But those are also appearing inside something which you can't see with your eyes, which you can't grasp with your hands. It doesn't have any quality, it doesn't have any smell or taste. We can't grasp it, and yet we very much know it's here. It's a space in which my body is appearing, which your body is appearing in. So if we really begin to look at that each object is arising inside some spaciousness, then we can begin to question. And again, if you're just following along with me and you seem to lose, you can prove at certain points all the way along what I'm saying experientially. I hope you're looking and proving inside. At any point, if you come up against something and you go, I don't know, I can't really prove that inside myself, it's absolutely fine. Just wanting to see this is going to begin to open something up for you. It's not the goal of this kind of inquiry to have an aha moment or an epiphany. That may occur, but it's really not all that important whether it does or not. As human beings, we're just conditioned to think of ourselves as a thing, as a someone, as an object. And we're just coming to see that there's something else about us. And even just the openness to experience this is going to begin to change things. So what really am I? And there's my body, my thoughts, my emotions, and then there is something which isn't a thing. It's not graspable. It doesn't have tangible, noticeable qualities. There is the space in which all of this is appearing. So the room, the furniture, your body, everything is arising inside some spaciousness. And the spaciousness is invisible, intangible. But how do we know the space in the room is here? We perceive it a different way, don't we? We're not seeing the space with our eyes, it's invisible. We can't feel it against our skin because it doesn't have any texture, but we know it's here. So there's an even more direct seeing, knowing happening here. There's a recognition that's happening before thought. There is something else about me which I can't perceive with my human senses. Doesn't have any color, doesn't have any tangibility, doesn't have any recognizable qualities at all, except for the fact we know it's here. It's very much here. So if you're following along, just see if you can recognize that all of these objects, including your body, must be appearing inside some spaciousness that must be here first, before any objects arise. Before this body arose, there has to be some space for it to appear in. And again, just to look and find this, to notice. And it's not a seeing that's going to happen with your mind. It's not a thinking about. It's just a clear, very normal seeming recognition that there is something here before the objects. And again, it won't feel amazing at first, most likely. It'll feel just normal. Well, it's just a spaciousness. It's always been here, and perhaps we haven't really noticed it by putting attention on it before. And when we ask the question, what really am I? This spaciousness is always here as an answer. Every single time. It's always here. Everything else that can come in an answer to this question. So our body, our thoughts, our emotions, a particular experience, a like or dislike, preference, a state, everything else, including our body, is going to go at some point. Everything else. The only answer to this question that's permanent and stable, what really am I, is the space, the spaciousness, the formlessness in which all of this is arising, appearing to be. Why is that so fundamentally important? Why is it important to see that there is this formlessness about you that's already present? Well, firstly, because if we can come to ask the question, which is here first, the body or this space in which it's appearing as formlessness, then we'll come to see, if not now, at some point we're asking this question, that this formlessness, the spaciousness must be here first. Before I can put anything in this room must be here first. Before this body appeared, the space for it to appear in was here first. What does that mean? It means that must be the most fundamental aspect of you. That yes, you are this form too, you are that particular body and you are that particular mind, and the way that it's uniquely appearing as you. But before all of that, and during all of that, and after all of that, this spaciousness that is the deeper you remains. It's not shouting for our attention. It's not changing. It's not wanting anything. It's not thinking. It's not suffering. It doesn't feel any emotions. It doesn't need to transcend anything or let anything go. It's not affected or changed when a human body arises in it, and however long the body's there for, and then when the body goes, it's still stable, it's still here. So just to begin to see, not with our physical eyes, but to see that it's here, to recognize this formlessness is present, that even there is another category other than forms, that it's not just, what we are is not just a form, there is also something deeper and much more stable and reliable about us. It's already a huge leap forward, and we're going to be able to start to feel, at first it can be very shocking to see there's something different about me, that I am not at all a thing in my deepest aspect. What does it mean then if you're not a thing, if the formlessness that you really are is not an object, a thing? Well, it means it's not coming and going. The space in which your body is appearing, when did it start? And when is it going to stop? Can it even do that? Do those categories apply to that formlessness? A thing, like a body or a thought, can appear and disappear, have a start and an ending. But can this formlessness, can this spaciousness begin? Only something with a size and a shape can begin and end. And again, as I'm going through this investigation, just to want to see what I'm saying, to try to prove it inside yourself is enough. It's really not important whether you actually manage to prove it tonight, right now in this satsang. What's important, what's exciting for me is that you're trying to look, and you're opening yourself up to a new way of perceiving yourself, to a new understanding that what I am isn't substantial at all. It's more like the air in the room, and yet it's very much present, it's stable, it's reliable. So getting to know this aspect of you that isn't ever going to jump for your attention, and it may seem the most obvious, normal thing ever. Well, it's just spaciousness. It may feel normal. It's going to begin to bring you out of suffering once and for all. Because we can, as human beings, we can do all kinds of spiritual practice, which will make our mind and our body feel better for a while, even feel amazing for a while. And that's fine. But to come out of suffering once and for all, we're going to have to begin to realize that we are not just that body and mind, to begin to put more attention on what the body and mind are appearing in rather than them particular. So is that spaciousness able to suffer? Is it able to feel bad? Can it be hurt? Can it be, can it grow old or become diseased? Can it have any illness? Can it suffer in that way? Can it suffer psychologically either? If it doesn't begin and end, what does that mean? Can we find a separate being? Can we find the someone when we look for it like this? When I look for myself, all I find is a body and this vast formlessness. Does this formlessness have any edges? My body has a particular size and shape, and it's so tall and wide and has these dimensions. But what about the spaciousness that it's appearing in? How far does that reach in all directions from my body? Can it ever reach an edge or an end if it's not a thing? And what does that mean for me then if I reach outwards in all directions? And can I have an ending? Can I have an edge? Again, looking at the difference between a thing and this formlessness. A thing can have an ending, an edge where it stops and it's no longer continuing. But how far does this space reach in all directions from right where your body is sitting? Does it reach to this body here? Could it stop at some point? Can we divide the spaciousness? If you were sat here next to me, would there be an imaginary division, a division in the spaciousness between, and this side is yours and this side is mine? Can we do that with something that isn't a thing? Is that really possible? And all this may seem unfamiliar and really strange way to kind of look at ourselves. But to investigate like this, we're going to begin to become more and more aware that our real being is everywhere all the time. And we haven't done anything to our body and mind to recognize this. They might not feel a different way. It's just this seeing that's happening before thought, a recognition and knowing that's deepening. Where am I then if I am this spaciousness? And where am I not? Can I really say now that I'm over here in England and everyone else, some other beings on this are watching from some other country? Or is that no longer so true for me? Do I have a precise location as this formlessness? My body has a location, but what about me? I hope you're looking and seeing and just being willing to entertain these questions inside yourself. We're just exploring what it means to be that vast formlessness. And again, even as we're doing this, it might not feel like anything special at all. So what's the difference then between experiencing the oneness, that which is everywhere and never comes to an end about you, that which is infinite and doesn't stop? What's the difference between knowing this and experiencing it? Well, a knowingness is not necessarily going to happen in thoughts. It's going to be an experiential reality. How does it feel? What is the experience really of being the one when you've deeply seen it? Well, in a deep seeing that I go on forever as this formlessness. Formlessness can't have an edge, can't come to an end, doesn't have a size. It becomes clearer and clearer as you do this again and look again and look again. All these forms are arising inside this formlessness, and there is only the one formlessness. Again, we can check that right now. Can the space, the vast consciousness that is the real being, can you divide it into two? If I had some clay, I could pull the clay into two, but can I do that with something that isn't a tangible thing? Can there really be two beings? There may be lots of human bodies, but are they really all these beings when we actually look in this way? So even this may be a really unfamiliar way to think about yourself, to investigate, but it leads to a clear seeing and a stable, grounded realization that I am everywhere, all the time, and there is only this one being, there is only this formlessness. When I pay attention to my thoughts, my emotions, my experiences happening in the body, then it will seem like I am just a someone. I am somewhere. I have a location here. So when we use our senses and our mind, we'll really feel like we're someone somewhere. And that's okay. But when we look without our senses, when we look in a direct seeing, when we recognize that formlessness that's here, it's not happening with our senses. It's not happening with our mind. Mind may think about this, of course, but the actual seeing of that spaciousness is a knowing, it's a recognition, it's before thoughts arise. And this is going to, as this becomes clearer for you, then there's going to be an absence of suffering, an absence of fear, an absence of any ability to go into conflict inside yourself, into division, meaning you won't be able to resist thoughts when they come, or emotions. You won't be able to suppress them. And that means you can't suffer. Most importantly, if you are not a thing, if you are formless, you are never going to come to an end, ever, because you never began. And there is nothing other than you in reality to hurt you or to affect you. Again, we can prove that to ourselves if we find this formlessness again, if we recognize it and ask the question, how big is that consciousness? As we look at this way again and again and again, it's going to become clearer and clearer that consciousness, that formlessness is infinite. It's at least as big as the universe, at least. All of these forms are appearing to be inside it. And all we have to do is be willing to look like this again and again. And if we bump up against something, I can't really confirm that it doesn't have an edge. It was the same for me initially. I had to really, well, how can I come to know that formlessness doesn't come to an end? How can I know that I'm everywhere? It was just to keep investigating and looking at where there was some doubt, where it wasn't a certainty inside. And that's absolutely normal for all of us. So this kind of seeing, each time you see it, it gets deeper and it's more lived and it's more experiential. What is the experience of an absence of suffering and an absence of fear? It's absolute peace. Absence of fear is absolute joy and love. And again, I just have to say again, it won't start off with peace, love and joy maybe. Maybe it will just be, oh, I didn't realize there was that about me. And it just, okay. So we have to cultivate this willingness to look again and again and again. Each time we do, we're going to find it harder and harder to think of ourselves as a form, as a someone. And you don't lose anything in this seeing. Your body and your mind and your personality and everything else is going to stay the same. You just won't be able to think of yourself so much as a someone, as a something that has a start and an ending. So just to look and to see again and again, you begin to have a deep and profound knowing. How do we know that we know? Well, we'll be living in peace. There'll be a clarity, there'll be an inability to suffer. Any emotion arises inside the body, anything happens in our outer world, it'll just all be allowed to occur inside that formlessness that you are, inside that consciousness that is real about you. And this isn't an anti-world or anti-life thing. Your body and your mind are still there for you to enjoy. They're still functioning perfectly fine, even though you're doing this investigation with me. And you can begin to enjoy your body and mind then without the presence of fear and suffering, without this constant contraction that happens inside the body. Our body and our mind have to constantly live the experience of what we think is true. So if I think I'm a limited finite being that's going to come to an end, and the body is going to be feeling fear on some level. If I have recognized myself to be the formless consciousness, then the body is going to reflect that with a sense of lightness and peace and clarity, and an ever-growing sense of joy. How to live like this then? What difference does it make then, having seen this, when some strong emotion arises, or when some trigger event happens, or when our ego starts talking again after satsang, or even maybe right now? How to live as this? Well, all of our egoic sense of self, all of our karmic patterns, all of our suffering is based on this idea that I am someone, somewhere. And every time something arises, we can check that against what we're seeing in our deepening of seeing. Am I really someone? Am I really even trying to wake up as this formlessness? What problem can this formlessness have? Does it even need to establish itself, even to deepen in this seeing? Is the vast formlessness that your body is arising in, is it trying to be more peaceful even? Is it trying to get rid of negative emotions or transcend karma or any of that stuff that we think we're doing? What can disturb it? Is it affected by the presence of negative emotions? Is it affected by the presence of bliss even? Is it uplifted when things are going well, or can it feel down when things are going wrong? Or is it not of this category? Is it not of that same nature? So every problem or trigger that seems to arise for us after and all the time we're deepening our seeing, we're actually looking and looking and looking, experiencing the no-thingness that is our real nature. Whenever a problem arises, then how do I stay as this formlessness? How do I live like this? Well, let me check. Is the formlessness having to make an effort to be itself? Is it making an effort for anything? So everything that arises is going to arise after this kind of seeing, to be examined in the light of what you've seen yourself to be now. Do I have to let go of this karmic pattern now? Do I have to deal with fear now? How does the formlessness respond to these problems? Does it have to do anything at all about them, or does it just completely allow everything to be? Is it even waking up? Is it coming back to clarity even, if we really want to go past any illusion? Or is that part of this dream of being someone? The last part of this dream, but still part of the dream nonetheless. It's absolutely still and silent already, that spaciousness. It doesn't need to let go of anything. It doesn't need to stabilize in anything. It doesn't need to transcend anything. And it's certainly not battling with ego. It just kind of is. And the more that we see this and experience this aspect of ourselves, the more these old ideas, things we still have to do, things that are on our to-do list as spiritual seekers, is going to begin to fall away. With a deep and profound seeing of this real nature. And your body and mind is kind of get cleansed of all of this anyway. It's just going to begin to appear to be even more obvious that none of that has really affected you. We've all experienced being affected by these things, and we will continue to do so until we see clearly that I'm not at all what I thought I was. I'm not a thing at all. I'm not anything I can perceive with my mind, with my eyes, with my ears. And yet I'm very definitely present as that formlessness. It's the one thing that cannot go. Everything else will go. So if you've been following along and looking with me and you hit a road bump, it's absolutely fine. Maybe just listen to this again. Just a gentle wish to see. I'd like to know that I can't die. I'd like to know that I am infinite, that I go on forever in all directions. I'd like to know with a conviction that I've always been here as this. Every awakened being that's ever come to clarity has had to do the same process, to look again, to notice where there is some doubt inside and just gently guide investigation to that area. And then we can begin to move beyond that doubt. We can begin to come to an experiential knowing. Every time you look at this, it'll feel ever more deeper, it'll feel more amazing, it'll reflect more in the mind and body, the clarity, the quietness, the peace. And every time you look at this, you're going to find it harder to believe thoughts next time when they come up. What do you have to do now to complete your awakening as this? How much further is there for you to go in your seeing as this? How much longer is it going to take for you to wake up fully as this? Do any of those still apply to you as this formlessness? What else can you ever achieve with the mind and body that's going to affect this formlessness? So just looking and seeing, you're going to come to a deeper conviction, a deeper knowing, which is before thought, before experience. And still, we get a someoneness can still play. It still seems like there is someone here talking, but it's been clearly seen that there really isn't. And I can enjoy my someoneness knowing it's a temporary thing with a clear, deep recognition that I'm actually everywhere. So you can stop temporarily looking for feelings and looking for aha moments, and all of those are great. They'll come later after the realization, after the seeing. The fundamental thing is to experience, to look, and to find out what you are. Okay. None of us are born knowing how to investigate like this. None of us are somehow magically able to see this formlessness. Every single being that's ever done this has had to go through this same looking and looking and looking again. So there is nothing wrong or different about you if it's not immediately obvious what I'm saying tonight. It wasn't for me either. I had to look again and again. But just the urge to look and to want to recognize with clarity, and you'll break through this seeming barrier into a knowing, a deep knowing that permeates your body and mind, that begins to stabilize in your body even too, and then in your life also. Okay. So if anyone would like to ask a question about this investigation that we've just been through, or if you want to ask a question or share something in general about awakening or truth, then I'd invite you to if you click on participants at the bottom of your screen and scroll down to the bottom of the participants section, there is the option to raise hand, and it'll let me know that you're waiting to ask. Okay, we'll start with Diane. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
It's really, really quiet.
Oh. Okay. I don't know why it's really quiet.
Oh, there we go. Yep, that's all good.
Too far away, maybe. So I have done some exploring in this whole area of I want to know something, whatever the thing is. And so it's pretty clear to me, anything that wants to know something is the mind, because inquiring minds want to know. And the knowing doesn't care if it knows or not. It just is that. And so whenever I find myself like really wanting to know, I kind of look to where the question is coming, question is coming from. And then I have to ask, will knowing, how will knowing affect me? Will it really help me in my life to know this thing? How would that change anything for me? Would it change anything? And generally, it comes back to that. No. I mean, anything that the mind can know is not useful in this exploration. It's just so. Exploring in that way has really helped me to discard a lot of nonsense. But if it wasn't for the fact of me looking into it, I wouldn't have had that recognition. So, so I really enjoyed this exploration today, because it kind of reminded me of ways that I, kind of just been able to toss out tons of unnecessary nonsense. And I always love that, inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, the mind is, there's nothing wrong with the mind, but thinking about your real nature is never going to get you any closer to actually seeing it, is it? It's mind can only think about it, as you said as well. So, and that's fine. But what we want to be as quickly out of suffering as possible is a deep seeing, a recognition, an immediate knowing of what is, rather than thinking about it. Mind will think about it anyway. That's what it does, doesn't it? So, but yeah.
And even in small day-to-day things of, like, oh, I wonder, I wonder what's, and it can distract us, that thought of like, wonder what so-and-so's doing. I haven't heard from them. Waiting for this answer to the text. And, just little things like that really pull from, they're just kind of little distractions, but it's like, wow, do I really need to know?
And eventually it's just more an experiential, watching the body and mind do what they do from this vastness, and then anything I need to know in that way is just going to happen, isn't it? And rather than trying to figure it out. But it's just a switch over really to seeing when it comes to self-realization. It's a realization of what's already here about you, rather than through the mind again. So it's important to know the difference in the first place, like you said, very important. I can think about what's real forever and never once experience it directly, or I can directly experience it right now. And and then the thinkingness isn't quite so important or troubling anymore.
Yes, and that the whole idea of am I going to experience this forever? How can I know? I mean, forever isn't a thing. It's a concoction of time in the mind. There's not that, like the question dissolves. And even I was in a retreat with Adya Shanti, and he was talking about a similar topic, like the permanent, like knowing versus the temporary thing. And I guess he was talking about his own experience, and he said, well, there was a time where I kind of knew, and he's like, but still, I mean, I don't know. I never know. I don't know what's going to happen. So, working now.
Very good. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Diane. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to Jermaine. Go. Hi.
Hi, am I on?
You are, yes. Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, you too. I really enjoyed listening to you speak. I found I didn't really need to hear what you said. It was just, it just got me in the zone. But what I also keep experiencing, what I'm experiencing right now, is when I can sense that spaciousness. But what has been happening lately is when I sense it, I start to feel like I'm having what I can only guess is a panic attack, because my heart starts to race and I can't breathe very well.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a bit of a history to this sort of chest tightness as well. Throughout the last 2 years, I've had constant chest tightness, and also physical, like acid reflux, just really chronic.
Yeah.
But I also think there is an element that is, because before that sort of a digestive thing came to a head a couple of years ago, I've had this chest tightness feeling for a while, and I feel like it probably, but I really don't have a clue. I'm lost in all this. I feel like it's, something, stress, or I don't know what that is, but it's just this constant tightness. But what I've noticed very recently, is when I'm listening to a satsang or a video, when I feel that sense of spaciousness and peace, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and I can feel then the adrenaline, the fear goes through my veins, and I just feel it, and the more I feel it, the worse it gets, and then I have to sort of stop, because I've got to concentrate on breathing, because I start to get lightheaded, so I have to do this sort of timed breathing. The other day it came on really strong, and I was able to calm the breath down by just sort of breathing slowly. But you do feel like you're dying, and I don't know if this is all part of it, but I'm really
it's very,
struggling.
very common. It's very common. It was very similar for myself. There was, upon the recognition that there was something else about me, there was a lot of fear and tension in the body. And it's because it's extremely common to have this kind of reaction, but there's a way to look at it, to handle it, that will help. So from our sense of being a separate being from our someoneness, when we first discover and experience this very direct formlessness, our egoic sense of self sees it as other than me. It sees it as something different, something much bigger than me as an ego can handle. And when it first starts to perceive this, it perceives it as a threat. It thinks that it's going to crush our ego or something like that, our you know, our sense of who we thought we were, it begins to feel threatened, you know, sort of, and it responds with this fight or flight feeling, you know, that's happening, very visceral in the body, very tangible response, because the ego sees the self as something other than it, you know. So the way to handle this is to really begin to see, well, is it one or the other? You know, the ego's worry that the reason for the fear is, okay, now that the self is home, now that landlord's come back, it's going to kick the tenant out. You know, it's going to boot it out, and I'll be, you know, the small self is going to be annihilated. That's what the fear is. But with the clearest seeing that this has always been here, it's just here, and it's not really interested in you know, sort of destroying anything. In fact, it's not capable of destroying anything. It's just the kind of spaciousness in which our egoic sense of self is arising. As we begin to look at it this way, I had to really sort of look and say, well, is it going to destroy something? You know, the fear is that okay, my sense of who I thought I was is going to be annihilated and crushed or something like that. I'm going to be extinguished. But when we look at the self, the formlessness, it's really not interested in that way, is it? And you may know this consciously, of course, but we can begin to just understand that something inside is very scared and feels threatened by this seeing, and it's trying to throw you off by, you know, this response. It's kind of saying, don't look at this, this is dangerous, we're gonna come to a nasty end if we look at this. But the more I kind of investigated, well, that formlessness has always been here. If it wanted to destroy my ego, it could have done at any point. And actually, it's much more the opposite of that. It's much more loving and open. It just allows anything to be inside it, any form to arise inside it. And as I looked like this, you know, is this spaciousness capable of destroying anything? It's like, no, it's not actually. It's inherently accepting and inclusive, and it just began to soften this fear. And just looking like this again and again, even just thinking in this way, began to just, this fight or flight thing just began to, not all at once, it took some looking, you know, but there was just a softening of this fear response. The ego perceives the formlessness as something other than it and a threat, you know, something, it kind of has this fear of something powerful, something divine. You know, it's kind of got this sense that it's not good enough, the ego, and it's going to be in trouble when the landlord comes back and sees what a mess it's made or whatever, you know. But none of that is really true when we actually look. It's the real self. It's just not, it's inherently loving in that it's allowed our ego to be as it is forever, even to think it's alone and separate forever. It's actually incapable of forcing anything or causing any harm in that way, isn't it, when we look? Just to kind of investigate like this, you might even feel now just a little bit calmer, you know, even just to realize what the fear is about, and to start to, the self wants to understand, doesn't it, to understand why this fear is here, and it wants to understand about the ego. It's not looking to harm it in any way, and it would have, formlessness isn't waiting for this recognition, but it would kind of wait forever. When it doesn't really matter even if the ego sees it or not. Can you get a sense of just coming to understand the fear, what the fear is about, and then questioning, okay, if the fear is some kind of gut level response to the seeing, okay, now I've seen this, I'm in trouble type of thing. And of course, it's going to rise up when you're experiencing what you really are. And of course, that's going to happen. Just to understand it and to see that what the ego's scared of can't actually occur. It's intangible, the formlessness. It's incapable of crushing or destroying anything. Somehow we've got this myth in our human consciousness that the moment we realize the self, it's just going to crush the ego or something. And it's just not true. It's just one of these myths that are scared us, you know, but it's not actually so.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that it does feel scared, because I've had, well, I wouldn't call it an experience because it just felt just very sort of what you're describing. I couldn't even feel a really strong sense of presence. It was just, life was normal, but just so peaceful, and nothing affected me. It was normal, and I was surprised, I guess, when that faded away, but I've sort of passed that stage of trying to get something back.
Yeah.
I've been there and done that.
It doesn't work too well, does it? I tried that for a while.
Yeah, so I gave that up, it's like, oh, sod this, a couple of years back. But so since then, it's just really been watching all my triggers, and just seeing some fade away as I sit with them. But yeah, so it's like, it should know that there's nothing to fear because nothing really happens. I'm not saying I've seen, I don't know, these levels of awakening. I'm not saying I've got to a high level, but that those 2 weeks. But for those 2 weeks, it was just, I just knew that this is it. I just knew instinctively. But yeah, so you'd think my ego would know there's nothing to fear. So that's what's funny. But
you
as
can,
you've spoken to me, it has come. I feel calmer.
Yeah, good. You have to remember as well that ego can't really perceive the self. Ego can only compare forms and difference and shapes and opposites, higher and lower. So you can see that the self is harmless in that way, but the ego can't. It's an unknown quantity to the ego. So it's kind of, it makes sense from ego's perspective to kind of have this fear response because it's trying to keep you safe in its own way. It thinks it is you. It's trying to keep you safe. So just to even understand that, there's a much more, for me, there was much more ability to just allow the fear without it overwhelming me then. And it's absolutely fine to just feel a little bit of it at a time. You don't have to kind of be superwoman and, okay, I'm just going to feel all this fear at once, just as much as you can is fine.
Yeah, that's nice to hear you say that because, I'm so used to feeling all these emotions fully. So when that one comes up, it doesn't feel like an emotion. Obviously, it's physical. Yeah. So as I relax and feel it, it gets to the point where I'm like, oh God, I've got to be careful because I can't breathe. So I can't. It's not like my emotions. I can't just sit there and feel the pain waving through my body because it feels like something physical is really going to happen. And
it's just trying to pull your attention away from the real self because it thinks you're in danger. It thinks it's hitting the panic button, isn't it? It's saying don't go here, don't look any further. So if it can distract you like that, it feels that it's kept you safe. So just to understand that that's its nature and it does what it does out of trying to keep you safe. That's what its purpose is. Then it won't be such a visceral, tangible feeling. It can come out more as emotion and it won't have to affect the body so much. Fear, we feel it on an emotional level, but we also feel it's a very gut level. My whole body used to, I realize all of my muscles were just tense in those moments, absolutely tense. So they'll just begin to let go as you see, okay, I understand this response from ego, but I'm also not going to let it stop me. And I'm just going to keep seeing that the self isn't going to do anything harmful or violent to ego, and I'm going to keep showing the ego that. I'm also going to understand why it's scared. I'm not going to reject that either, and then this response will just start to soften. It's usually just sustained by us trying to get rid of it, because we say it shouldn't be responding this way. Why is all this happening now that I've recognized what I am? It's just because it's saying it likes to keep everything the same, doesn't it? It doesn't like new things, and especially doesn't like things that it can't perceive. So it can only say, well, it must be a threat then if I can't perceive it, from the egoic perspective. So just to understand it is going to allow you to kind of transcend it.
Okay, so it's okay to let it get to a certain crescendo and sort of, because I feel, like I just want to go all the way and just say, well, just let me die, collapse and die then. But I feel like I can't do that. So I'm not going to I'm still going to progress, do you think, if I sort of let it get to a certain crescendo and then sort of stop? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other myth, is that somehow you've got to work up enough courage to just let it come completely. And that's the only way to progress. That's the myth here. It's giving you a challenge. But so in the end, actually, I tried 3 or 4 times and got to this point of fear would build up, and I would be like, oh, this time I'm gonna do it. And then each time I would chicken out and blame myself. And then 2 months later, I'm back in the same position, and I thought there must be an easier way than this, there must be a. So I just began to sit and contemplate, okay, can the self really destroy anything? Am I really, I began to sort of direct my thoughts to that, and using the mind to kind of transcend this fear of the mind. It was like the most effective. And then rather than trying to sort of battle this impossible battle, if that's what's happening in your experience, it's because there must be an easier way around it. Instead of trying to climb over this big wall, I just went around it. Like, okay, let me really look and see, is the self, the formlessness, is it going to crush anything about me? And I really wanted to see that and experience, is that possible? And just that began to melt this fear away. I never ever managed to face the fear fully and transcend it. It's the biggest myth of all.
I
figured that out
feel
after about 2 years of trying to pluck up the courage. So
I feel very happy to hear that. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to share that with you. It's otherwise we somehow feel we're failing because we don't have enough courage or something like that. But I think there's very few of us that could say, certainly not me, that okay, if this realization means my body disappearing, then so be it. We might sort of feel that way, but when push comes to shove and the feelings are rising and your throat's closing up, it's like, hang on a minute, so there's always an easier way. If it's an impossible battle, it's because there's a better, easier way, just to really investigate, can this actually occur? Let me really kind of look at this. And you might feel an opening in the body, just even realizing you don't have to have this, Armageddon thing going on at some point. It's just lovely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
You're
so
very
much.
welcome. Good. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we'll go to Anu.
Hello, Helen.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for these satsangs.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Helen, I've been trying to do this for a very long time, but I never get to the point where I see myself as formless, or, you say spaciousness. The best I can get to is, when you relax the focus of your attention or withdraw your attention, you reach a space where you feel like you're just conscious or just aware. And there are no thoughts there, very quiet and very peaceful, but I still cannot experience the formlessness or the spaciousness that you talk about.
Okay, well, do you want to do it now? Should we try now?
Please.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's what I like to hear. So that awareness, right now you're aware of these words, you're aware of your body, you're aware of the room you're sitting in, you're aware of what thoughts or anything like that. Just your normal everyday awareness. It's nothing special. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about that awareness. And again, if you can't answer, it's totally okay to say, I don't know, or I'm not sure. Okay, it's not, the goal of this isn't to have some massive aha moment. That'll probably occur at some point later. So the awareness, when you know a thought's present, that which knows the thought, is it capable of, is it a thing? Is it the awareness? Is it a thing? Is it something you can see with your eyes or grasp with your hands, awareness?
No.
Does it have any shape at all? Can you say, okay, it's this big or it's this small?
No.
Very good, very good. So you're natural at this already. Lovely. So could you even say where awareness is? It's present because you can hear these words. It's listening through your ears, but where is it precisely? Can you say it's over here or over there? Or is it not really like that?
Yeah, it's not like that. I cannot pinpoint whether it's here or there. It's just,
It's
feels
present.
like it's present. Yeah, that's the best I can say. It's present.
And can it be over there and not over here if it's not a thing? You know, if you had a table and you picked it up and you put it over the other side of the room, you could say, well, the table's over there, and you could pick it up and move it back over here. But is the awareness like that? Can it be in one place only, or is it kind of different quality, different nature?
I'm not sure about that one. That's where I get confused. Yeah, I don't get that. It just feels present, but when you ask me whether it's here or yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's absolutely fine, and we can work with that. So you said it's not it's not a thing. You said, right? It doesn't have a size or a shape. Awareness.
Yes, definitely.
So can it have an edge? How far does your awareness reach? If I was sat next to you in that room, how far would your awareness reach? Would it stop before it got to my body? Can it have an edge like a thing?
No, I don't know. It doesn't have an edge. No.
Very good. Very good. So, can we go a little bit further? Can we? Yeah.
Sure. Yes, please.
Good. So, is there such a thing then? And again, this might be a question that you can't answer right now, but just enough to look into it. Is there such a thing as your awareness? Can it only your awareness as a separate being? It feels like it seems like it, but when we actually look like this at the awareness itself, if it's not a thing, if it's kind of, things appear in it, don't they, like thoughts and emotions, but if itself it's not a thing, how far does it reach then? How far does it go? Does it go as far as the walls of the room you're in? Even just to look like this is going to begin to change something for you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there is any end to it.
Wonderful. So every time you look like this, it's going to become clearer and clearer, more and more obvious that this awareness, it is here, it's present, and it's everywhere. That there isn't really such a thing as your awareness and my awareness. When we really look on that level, when we really see. At first it may not seem so obvious. We have to look and look again. But this awareness is formless, isn't it? It's not a thing. And only a thing can have a location and a size and a shape. So which is here first then? The awareness or your body?
Definitely my awareness.
So you sound really certain of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. It's very obvious that the body appears in front of it. I mean, there's something before the body that's aware of the body.
And there's something, the awareness that's here before the body is not a thing. It's not an object, we've just said.
Yeah. Just, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you
Presence,
one more question.
I would say. Yeah.
Say again? Okay.
Yeah, just the presence. Yeah.
Yeah. So does the awareness even need the body? If it can be present before the body, does it need a body? It can look through the body.
Doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Now you're talking like a sage. So just one more question. And again, if you can't answer it, it's absolutely fine. So this awareness that is, it goes on forever, you said. It doesn't seem like it stops. It could stop ever. When you look at that awareness, is there anything other than it?
No, it's just that, I mean, yeah,
Can it be
that's all there.
very good? Can it be divided? Could you slice it into two pieces?
Not at all.
Very good. So right now, you're having the same experience that I am. It's just a little more obvious to me because I've looked this way a few more times. What I am first and foremost is this awareness, and it doesn't come to an edge. It doesn't come to an end. It's not limited. Because if it doesn't come to an end in any direction from you, then it must go on forever. One more thing. I know I said last one, but I'm just going to ask you one more thing as
Sure,
we're on a
please.
roll. Yeah.
Please.
You're doing so good. Did this awareness appear? Did it start at some point?
It doesn't seem like it because it's always here. So I don't see that it appeared. It's always been here.
Was it ever going to disappear or come to an end?
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay. Well, that's absolutely fine. So if it never appeared, if it never became a thing, only a thing can appear. You know, there was nothing at all, and then something appeared, and then eventually, like a body, it will disappear, or a thought appeared and it'll disappear. Is the awareness like that? Did it appear like that, and will it go away at some point? Will there be a time when it's not present?
So because it did not appear, I would say there is no way it can disappear or not be there.
Very good. Only things that appear can disappear, right?
Yes.
Only things that are born can die.
Die, exactly.
Very good. So just to keep looking like we've done today, to go through this again and again, it's going to come more and more obvious. And even where you've said yes with certainty, when you've known the answer to the questions with a certainty, keep looking again until it's just so clear that you are that awareness, you know. And you can do that just simply by asking, is there a me and it? We can do that right now if you want to. There's the awareness, and when I look at the awareness, how am I seeing it? Is there a me looking at it? Is there a separate being looking at the awareness?
No, there's just awareness.
Was there ever a separate being looking at it?
No, never.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lovely. Perfect. So just to keep doing that again, to keep looking, all I find when I look for myself, if I look for the separate being, I find the awareness. Even if I look for you know, what's noticing that awareness, the only answer that comes back is awareness. There isn't anything other than it, as you said so clearly. And just to see it again and again, just keep doing this, and it should become a joy to look like this. It should feel really like a sense of openness begins to happen, a sense of discovery and wonder, you know, and might be a little scary too at first, as we were saying before, you know, like, gosh, this is really different to what I thought was true. But
so
yeah,
is this what you mean when you say spaciousness or formlessness? Okay.
Yeah, we could call it silence, we could call it awareness, we could call it spaciousness, we could call it the self, consciousness. It's got all these different names really, but it doesn't really have a name, does it? It's just what it is, you know. But we call it something for ease of conversation around it. It's not dead or inert, is it? The assumption we're all coming with at first is that the spaciousness is just dead, it's just inert. It becomes clearer and clearer. This is the intelligence itself. The body only gets its intelligence from this. The awareness is intelligent. You know, And that's what's looking through your senses. You can look through a body and you can have a conversation like this, but it doesn't need the body in the way that we think. You know, it's not going to be diminished at all when the body's gone. That means is you can absolutely enjoy it when you see this while the body's here. You can have fun without fearing an ending, you know, without fearing.
So when I sit and meditate, what do you recommend? Is this what I should do? Because when I really try to meditate, I can't reach anywhere. The best I can do is just try to, you know, sit in this, whatever this is, and the thoughts keep coming. And so if you were to recommend something, I guess this is what I should be doing.
Yeah, if this pulls you, if this feels important, what we've done tonight, then to do this would be really good. And just to spend time, once it's clearer, okay, what I really am is this awareness, as it's getting clearer. And that there never was a separate being. Just to spend time as this awareness, just noticing it. It's a very kind of pure form of meditation, isn't it? Just to recognize the awareness, which is the simplest of things. Is awareness present? Yes, it is. And just that, just doing that, spending some time doing that, even just a little bit of time each day is really, really powerful. It'll get clearer and clearer. Yeah, lovely. It's not kind of doing this meditation, it's more of a seeing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to sit down, and it's just withdraw myself or withdraw the attention or relax the attention, and then I'm already there. It's just
attention's either focused on a thing, a thought, or an emotion, or it's kind of opened up to see the awareness.
Exactly.
It's just kind of training attention to do this, really.
Yes.
All I ever did, until it was a habit to kind of notice the awareness first, rather than the thoughts and all of that.
So that's good, right? To just keep on doing that. Okay.
Yeah, eventually that'll just become a habit. And just like now, probably your attention automatically goes to thoughts first. Eventually attention will automatically just notice the awareness first, and the thoughts will just kind of be in the background more.
Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Very
so
well
much.
done.
Thank
Very
you.
well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, Sharon.
I really don't know if I have any questions left, because the Jermaine and Anu really helped me.
Amazing questions, weren't they?
Yeah, and the thing about what Jermaine was brave enough to say what she said, because that's something that happens to me too, where I hyperventilate. And now this happened years ago when I was not even aware about the self. And I did go into it, like it was just a shock in my life. And I went into it like a catatonia. So of course mine brings that picture back, you know, like, look, that can happen to you again. And nothing really happened to me. All I did was go to the hospital and I couldn't talk. I mean, I literally just couldn't talk. They were talking to me and I was just like, you know, I don't know why. And I don't even understand what happened, but see that mind is like we think that mind is thought, but it just seems to get, I think that when we get to the core of the ego, it gets more vicious, but I don't know why. I mean, why would a little 2-year-old get that vicious? Because it's scared because it doesn't know it's part of the self. That's what it is, but it's not even real. It's an empty, the self makes it real. So can you
just because it's not actually real, it's still, as in, it doesn't exist in and of itself as an entity, does it? It's supported by, and it is the self, but somehow it's become convinced that it is real, so it will act to try to protect itself. You know, it will try to distract you, or, but only out of self-preservation. All beings naturally have an urge for self-preservation, don't they? And that's all ego is doing. It's trying to preserve you, you know, preserve it, which it thinks are the same thing. And the more we can understand why it's doing what it's doing, that's a form of love, isn't it, as we've been saying before. And the more we respond to it with love and acceptance and understanding, it doesn't mean we have to like it, you know, but the more we can accept it, then that fear response is going to lessen. You know, the self always wants to love, to understand, to accept, to include, you know, so we can kind of come from that place with this response, and just gently it will melt away. And it is just very, very common. This is something the ego can't control. it can't try to manipulate the self. All of that, all of its usual tactics fail here. So it's going, panic, panic. Okay, don't go any further here, you know.
Well,
Big
here's
red
the
button.
thing that helped me. Like you said, we don't have to push ourselves through it. Like, okay, I've heard people have a lot of fear in the past. You know, of course, the ego is looking out for that. And so this person would tell us, you know, how she went through this and that. And I've already gone through a lot, you know, with my own, you know, mental health. So, I mean, when I hear that, it's like, okay, well, that's really ridiculous because I've had enough suffering. But that's ego again. So it's like, you know, what I keep doing is just looping, and I'm noticing a lot more resistance because there's just, it's, you know, and I just want to say thank you to Jermaine and Nanu, because I think when people have the courage to ask you things, you can't imagine it's just one being, you know. Now this morning I was in I always, you know, I'm really not interested in the Course in Miracles anymore, but I have a friend that I share with on Thursdays. It's been years and years, and I just feel drawn to just be with that. But I was having a very difficult time this morning with the president, you know, because my husband's freaked out over the, you know, I don't know what we're going to go through, like not Social Security. And really, my husband's me, so it's me that's afraid, I guess, you know. And so then I have to say, well, it's a happening. There's nothing I can do. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen but can it hurt me? Is it really true that anything can hurt me? Yeah. Like if this world would blow up, would it hurt who I see? Somehow the self still is really like excited by being Sharon. And I know that I'm the self sometimes. But I think sometimes it's almost like, oh, come on, Helen, I just want to be Sharon a little bit longer. And I really don't. But that's what
Why not do both? You know, the self says both. It doesn't want to pick one or the other. You are the self appearing as that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better way to look at it.
Ego will say, which one is it? Now I've recognized the self, I have to drop my someoneness. But there's nothing wrong with the feeling of being someone, and all that makes you you. It's the unique way that the self is appearing as you, as all of us, of course. And I feel like I finally at home with myself in terms of my personality, and finally discovering that and enjoying that rather than getting rid of it. It's not a mistake. It's not just something. It's like a software that comes with a body, isn't it? You're Sharon, you're someoneness, so you can enjoy that. Not going to. The self's always been there unnoticed in the background. It's never once said, okay, we need to get rid of this someoneness, you know, it's time for you to go, mate. It's only ego that sees it that way, isn't it? And the self doesn't even see anything other than it. It sees itself. It sees the one, you know, it's appearing as a human being and all the wonderful things that come with that. And they're not so wonderful.
Right. So what you were saying basically is that you gave up on the resistance. You said, okay, you know, it's just, you know, you stayed in the moment, and the resistance wasn't like, oh God, what if I can't breathe? You know, you know, if that happens, even you just say, oh, that's okay, Sharon, you'll be safe, you know, and just be like that with it rather than beating yourself. Just what
the recognition that this isn't my problem. Several times I came up against this seemingly insurmountable obstacle on the pathway in my own awakening. One was, you know, as we're talking about with Jermaine, and a lot of times in the inquiry itself, I just can't figure this out, you know, like we were doing tonight. But whenever I hit that, after a while, whenever I hit that sense of I can't overcome this, there was a point where I was trying to forgive someone that hurt me, and I just couldn't seem to forgive them. And I've tried and tried and tried. And in the end, I thought, is this even my issue? Or is ego throwing up roadblocks? You know, okay, play with this for a while, see if you can do this. And eventually it was just kind of, you know, is this even my problem as the formlessness?
Right.
Not that, you know, my life it doesn't mean anything, but maybe it'll sort itself out if I just recognize, you know, do I have to climb over this big wall, or is there a way around it? You know,
I think what you're doing, and tell me if I'm right on this, is you're helping us mitigate the pain that goes with this by just questioning it. You know, because the waking up's already happening. You can't do it. We wouldn't be here.
If there's a peaceful, non-resistant, non-scary, lazy way to do this, I would always find it shortcut. You know, If it comes to
Okay.
battling against great fear, not very few of us can do that. It's got to be an easier way than that,
Oh,
or great resistance in general.
that's why I'm so comfortable with you, because I really, I don't know, I just, maybe my filter heard different things from different people, but I want permission to just be the way I am, because I think that's that new book that you just wrote. I have, and it's wonderful. It's helping.
Lovely.
It's, you know, it's a process, and we don't know how it's going to end up, because we're not really in charge. If we just have these images and there's nothing back here but emptiness, then
Lovely.
bye.
Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. You take care. Lovely. Okay, Nicola. Last but not least.
Okay. Is that good?
Yes, it's very good. Nice to meet you.
You too. Yeah, I was listening to you on Buddha the Gas Pump, and then I thought, oh, I'll just check your website out before I carry on. And wow, live recording, how synchronistic. It's really sweet the way that happened. So I came on a bit late, and I'm sitting, kind of feeling, I feel quite relaxed talking now. Hasn't really changed. When I started sitting and seeing you and hearing you and then people's questions, so at the start I feel really quite peaceful. However, when I started, it's still there a bit. There was a lot. The awareness wanted to gravitate immediately to. I had a kind of achy back. I had sore eyes, and there was some sort of heavy fatigue going on. And I'm noticing awareness is noticing that. And in the day, it's like if I have something physical, or my energies can be very up and down because of health issues. It's like I'm very pulled to the sensations or the fatigue, and there's a kind of something really wants to just say this is the way it is, and kind of like accept it, and this is what's happening, and there's another part that I guess there's a little bit of resistance, that somehow I can't quite just let go and let it be, so I can still be in this beautiful awareness. It's almost like, okay, I don't want no fatigue and no body issues, and then I'll be able to rest in awareness. But that's not really the deal.
No, sadly it doesn't work that way, does it? It's
it doesn't.
When my life and my body and my emotions are perfect, then I'll be able to.
So I'm needing a bit of help around how to navigate my fatigue and body sensations, that they also come and go. Since I've been sitting there, they're a bit less, not because obviously I can't do anything to get rid of them, but something is shifting, whether just because I'm sitting out or because it doesn't even matter why. It's just that's what I'm noticing. I can still feel, something more in my back. Everything's, just needing a bit of support. How to
absolutely.
How to sort of let it be more somehow.
But firstly, the realization that the presence of phenomena doesn't have to be a distraction to your meditation, to your seeing of the awareness. That's such a commonly believed thought that we, as we were just saying, we somehow have this idea that we have to get rid of all these things before we can rest as the awareness.
But I sort of know that. I know that. And yet I'm finding it hard to feel it on a visceral level, to really know that, rather than just be, I hate, oh yes, of course that's right, but it's not my, I can't say experience, because obviously that's where the words get
there's a very simple way to kind of use this kind of thing that comes. So if there's some, let's say there's a pain in the body, you were saying there's, you know, some, I think you said your back. When that sensation arises, or when a thought arises, or when an emotion happens, or some restlessness, anything like that, you know, that happens, we can use that thing that's arising to notice that there's awareness of it. Very simple thing. You can only know that your back hurts, or there's some restlessness, or there's a whole lot of thoughts, because awareness is seeing those thoughts or noticing that pain. It sounds very, very simple, too simple to make a difference. But when you do it this way, instead of saying, okay, this pain has to go before I can recognize awareness or stay with the awareness, then you can actually begin to realize, okay, the pain is helping me to recognize awareness. I can use the pain, the thoughts, the emotion as a leapfrog back. Okay, but I can only notice this because awareness is present. And as you do this, it won't feel amazing. It won't feel any different at first. But what you're starting to prove to yourself then through this is that awareness is always there. It's either looking at some phenomena, it's either looking at the pain in the body, or some thoughts, or sleepiness, it's noticing sleepiness, or it's noticing itself. Okay, and there's this huge myth again in the human consciousness that the goal of meditation is to get attention 100% of the time on the awareness. And it's just not possible. At some point it's going to move to phenomena. Pain arises, or you start to feel sleepy, or some thoughts come. And all you need to do is, when you notice that you're looking at a phenomena again, is just to recognize, but awareness is watching that. That's how I know it's there. I can only see my thoughts because awareness is there. And this is a path of zero resistance, ego. We're not fighting with the mind and all of that there, in any sensations in the body. And like I was saying before, if there's a lazy way to do it, I'm all for it, you know, with minimal, you know, no fighting. So just to recognize I can only see these things, I can only know what I'm experiencing, how my body feels, all of that, because awareness is present. Just the recognition that as you see, awareness is here all throughout the waking state. It's here, noticing that the body is moving around and talking or sitting still. Then it's going to be less of a thing you have to do, and it'll just be more a recognition. Awareness is here, and it'll become more and more obvious it's what I am. Just from bringing attention back to it from the phenomena.
Sounds very subtle.
Very subtle. It doesn't feel amazing. In fact, your mind is going to say that's not going to fix anything. But if you try it out, it's amazingly powerful. You're not trying, because in doing it this way, you're not trying to change your experience. You know, you're not saying anything has to change before I can recognize awareness. But it's really, really simple and subtle. And we might completely miss the power of doing this at first until we sort of really try it. I can either spend a lifetime trying to get my experience to look this way, and then I can focus on awareness, or I can notice the awareness is watching this anyway. And that recognition that it's here constantly is going to become clearer and clearer. And then naturally, the more attention goes to awareness, the more the awareness is going to be more obvious, and the phenomena is going to begin to slide to the background of my experience.
That's really helpful. I kind of thought I was doing that, and I'm not quite doing that, honestly.
Just a fine tuning, isn't it? And then you just won't be at war with your experience, and that in itself causes disturbance. Trying to change what is.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm trying not to be at war, but that doesn't quite make sense because there's trying happening.
You just notice that tryingness, even. You can only know that tryingness, that which is in conflict inside you or in resistance. It's only noticeable, again, because of awareness. Right. And it's such a simple thing to do this that we kind of, it takes a little while to recognize just how powerful it is, that I don't have to change my experience at all. That I can meditate just as effectively with intense fear, or, you know, pain in the body, or not enough of something going on. The presence of those shows me that awareness is there because I can see them, I can see those things. Very, very simple, direct way to do it. Then slowly, naturally, when you're not trying to change your experience, it will begin to change anyway. But it won't matter at that point so much. You'll just be allowed to, it'll just fix itself basically. More.
Thank you. And I have one more question I'm not quite sure what my question is about the body. I'm very kinesthetic, and I'm really into, like, I do a lot of body awareness stuff because to loosen the trauma that I know is there. So I feel that's my path to be weller, more healthy. I also, it's about releasing that so the body, the digestion works better.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of just how that fits with you, your experience of your body, or what. Because I think sometimes I feel with some teachers they're trying to see the body from somewhere else, or kind of I don't even know. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say. Do you get a sense of where I'm going with this, or am I making?
I think so. Correct me if I aren't. We can. There is stuff in the body for all of us initially. Some trauma, some things that have happened. Even when we felt strong negative emotions, that kind of gets stuck inside the system. The most effective way I've found to release that is to notice the awareness. To spend time as the awareness, because just that is not suppressing, not suppressing or projecting these things. Then they can finally arise to the surface on their own. They're quite naturally trying to release, and the more that we're aware of the real self, that these things are going to come up anyway. It certainly was. I spent a lot of time trying to release fear and release these toxins and all of that, and in the end it just began to happen on its own when my attention was on the awareness.
Okay.
Or I saw that I've always been this awareness, and that the stories about myself had never been true. The more it was easier to release the effect of those stories, to realize they weren't real, that I'd never actually been in danger. I'd never actually, all of those things that we've deeply believed as a separate being have left their mark in the tissues and the cells even. And I found as well, the more that attention goes on to what's real, the more the body would naturally stretch or yawn or laugh or cry or do whatever it needed to do anyway. And it would tended to choose better foods, all of that, than when my attention was on my egoic self. So that is again something that's going to happen easier and faster with awareness on what's real about you, awareness on the awareness itself.
And so I might start to feel more emotion and feel more stuff as I go into awareness. Things will come up more.
Maybe,
Possibly.
Yeah. Sometimes you can feel energy moving. Sometimes an emotional arise. Sometimes memories. There was some kind of memories came up for me of sort of things that I'd forgotten about that were quite painful in the past. But to see them as the awareness, these things are just allowed all to arise and to be seen as fragments of my old sense of self that have been kind of, when we experience something traumatic, it kind of it leaves a stamp on the body somehow, doesn't it? And that stuff will just gently be released. And you might find, you find yourself laughing or stretching or yawning. There's a lot of yawning for me just as this stuff came out, out of the tissues and the muscles, and there's just a relaxation of the body that began to happen more by itself. Just as I focused on what's real. You can either be focused on what's real, or I can be focused on the old sense of self. And just to put attention on the old sense of self is going to make it all seem so much bigger and more real. And it's enough just to put attention on what's true about us, that awareness we're calling it tonight, but we could call it anything. And then this stuff will begin to arise by itself. And it's so much easier to process and release as the self, rather than as a someone, that's going through that.
That's what I'm confused about. So I felt I had to really go into the feelings, and I do quite a lot of body meditation. Is that still okay to do that, to go deeply into my body?
It is. I've just, and it's whatever preference is fine. It, you know, works for you. I just found it was easier for me to do it by focusing on. It's not ignoring the mind and body, but being that space in which they appear just allows them to move as they want to and need to. All this stuff needs to unravel, kind of, that's in being in there. And I just found it easier and faster to do it this way. But it's entirely what you feel best to do.
I'm not sure, but that's been really helpful.
But
Yeah.
try it both ways and see. You feel,
Okay.
you know, just for me, it was just once I stopped, once I began to put attention on what was real about me, the body and mind just seemed to begin to sort themselves out somehow in a way that I hadn't managed to. You could feel all this tension and all this fear and everything, you know, but it wasn't releasing. So, well, you know, you can try it both ways and see which one you prefer.
Oh, thank you.
Or a mixture of both, you know.
Yeah, I find that really helpful. Thank you.
Good, very good. It's normal to have this stuff in there after we've believed that we're a separate being. It brings a lot of fear and it brings a lot of conflict and tension, you know, so it's just natural that stuff would start to release as we see clear what we really are. So.
Well, I've really enjoyed listening. Quite often I don't stay very long with people, and I've just felt more and more peaceful as I've been.
Oh, lovely. I'm glad to have you with us.
Yeah.
Glad you've enjoyed. Thanks for sharing that. Lovely. Okay, so we will leave it there this evening. Okay. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.
Love you, Helen.
Love you too.